The gate supervisor snapped, "You're not first class." Humiliating Evelyn Carter as a passenger sneered, unaware that in 30 minutes, Evelyn would ground Horizon Airlines. The words hung in the air like cold steel, slicing through the early morning buzz at JFK's Terminal 4. Before we reveal Evelyn's victory, tell us where you're watching, Seattle, Miami, or beyond. If her fight for fairness moves you, subscribe now. Tomorrow's tale of justice prevailing is unmissable. Share your story in the comments. Evelyn Carter, a 68-year-old black woman dressed in a deep navy blazer, stood with calm resolve as chaos buzzed around her. She held her boarding pass, firm and legitimate, marked clearly first class, seat 2A, but the gate supervisor, Margaret Voss, stood in front of her like a brick wall, voice sharp, eyes cold. "Our algorithm reassigned your seat to economy," she said flatly, not even pretending to hide the contempt in her tone. Evelyn didn't flinch. Behind her, the crowd of passengers, tired from delays and sharpened by impatience, began to murmur. "She can't afford first class," someone said just loud enough for it to sting. Preston Caldwell, a man in a $1,000 coat and smug confidence, stood off to the side, smirking. "This isn't a charity flight." He glanced at her blazer and pearls like they were borrowed. Evelyn held his gaze and responded not with anger, but clarity. "Your system's error will cost you." Margaret crossed her arms, scanning Evelyn's boarding pass with performative skepticism, then raised an eyebrow. "Economy's more your speed," she muttered, stepping slightly closer, her badge glinting under the fluorescent light. Evelyn stayed where she was. This seat was paid in full. She said, calmly, but with a steel edge. Tara Newman, a flight attendant standing nearby, whispered into her crew app and tilted her head. Her booking suspicious. She said to no one in particular, but loud enough for everyone, "Flag it. Potential fare dodger." She tapped on her iPad and smirked. Preston's phone was already up. He recorded Evelyn as if capturing an exhibit. "First class is for elite travelers." "Not this," he said, voice dripping with arrogance. Then he posted it to TikTok with a caption that read, "Horizon keeps it classy. You decide, real traveler or faker." Evelyn, unfazed, held her purse tight and replied with slow precision, "Every action here is being recorded." Tara raised an eyebrow. "Security's checking you as we speak," she said casually, then turned her back. Nearby, a few passengers watched, some smirking, some silent. But Evelyn stood her ground, her voice lowered slightly. "You'll face consequences." Moments later, Evelyn's past flickered in her mind, not as nostalgia, but as warning. She'd built Skyward Consulting from scratch, an aviation consulting firm that reshaped post-9/11 airline practices. She knew this terrain. She'd been called too old, too black, too female, too everything. A vice president once told her she lacked the face of a CEO. Now retired, she chose to fly quietly, but dignity didn't retire, and it sure didn't shrink under insults. Her silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. Behind the commotion, Lydia Harper, a travel vlogger in her late 40s, filmed the exchange on her phone, narrowing in on Margaret's words, catching every flick of disdain in her voice. Lydia gave Evelyn a subtle nod, mouthing, "Got you." Not far from her, Marcus Tate, sharp-eyed, composed, and already live streaming to YouTube, raised his voice slightly. "If you're watching, this is happening right now at JFK's Gate 12, Horizon Airlines. Passenger Evelyn Carter is being denied her rightful first-class seat." Nina Patel, the airport's own social media manager, watching from an internal monitor station nearby, clicked record on the audio feed as soon as Tara's comment about fare dodgers played through the intercom. Down by the tarmac, Jasper Reed, a 47-year-old baggage handler, activated his department-issued body cam. "They'll need to see this later," he muttered. Evelyn was not alone, just quiet. What none of the staff realized was that Evelyn had already begun documenting the moment in her own way. She reached into the pocket of her jacket and pressed her thumb against a disguised pen, a digital recorder embedded inside. It caught everything. Preston's arrogance, Tara's slander, Margaret's final slur. "We don't need her kind up front." The words were quiet but clear. Evelyn leaned slightly toward Amelia Gordon, her longtime assistant who had been quietly seated near Gate 11 watching every move. Evelyn didn't even look at her when she said it. She simply whispered, "Leak it." That's all it took. Amelia texted a single word, "Now." Seconds later, Jasper's body cam footage went live on TikTok under the hashtag Horizon Injustice. The view count ticked like a slot machine gone mad, 1,000, 2,000, a million in under 3 minutes. Nina synced the video to Instagram Reels from her side of the terminal, layering it with audio from Tara's crew app post. Passengers nearby began to shift. Some raised their phones, others turned away, embarrassed. A child whispered to her father, "Why are they being mean to that lady?" Preston looked up from his phone, his smirk fading slightly as comments flooded his TikTok. "That's racial profiling. Shame on you. Her name is Evelyn Carter. Google her." Evelyn, still standing tall, looked directly at Margaret. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't tremble. It just carried. "Your career's crashing." What began as a mundane gate delay was shifting. The energy at Gate 12 felt different now. Lydia raised her phone high, panning slowly, catching every expression, Margaret's tightening jaw, Preston's growing unease, Tara stepping back as whispers rose around her. That gate standoff was set to ignite a passenger revolt. Lydia narrated into her mic. Amelia sent another file. Evelyn's full booking receipt, time-stamped and verified, to Nina, who scheduled it for LinkedIn and Threads, knowing Evelyn's professional followers would notice immediately. Marcus, now over 2,000 live viewers strong, updated his caption, "Retired CEO Evelyn Carter, denied and degraded. This is how Horizon Airlines treats its elders and its truth." Evelyn watched all of it, still without moving. She didn't need to yell. She had already built a network over decades, one that was now clicking into place like gears in a machine. And in 30 minutes, that machine would grind Horizon Airlines to a halt. A shrill ding sounded from the gate's PA system. Then Margaret's voice echoed out across the terminal security alert. "Possible breach at Gate 12. Remain clear." Evelyn Carter hadn't moved an inch, but now she was labeled a threat. Passengers turned, eyes narrowing, some in fear, others in annoyance. Tara Newman held her phone high, already filming. Evelyn Carter stole a first-class seat. She whispered dramatically into the camera. Voice hushed for impact but loud enough to carry. Preston Caldwell reappeared at her side. Phone held landscape, his tone smug and performative. "Horizon Airlines protects its premium experience," he declared to his live followers, panning the camera to Evelyn. "This is how we deal with liars." But Lydia Harper wasn't having it. She stepped into the frame, leveling her phone at Tara. "Show us the proof." "Then," Lydia said coolly, "you just accused a senior citizen on camera? Where's the evidence?" Tara's composure cracked. "Mind your business," she snapped, yanking her phone down. The delay had frayed everyone's nerves. A woman in a neck pillow shouted, "Kick her out already," another man grumbled. "Some people will do anything for a free upgrade." A chorus of voices rose, not because Evelyn had done anything wrong, but because the crowd needed a target. Evelyn stood alone, her back straight, her eyes calm. "Your lies are criminal," she said clearly, so that no one could misunderstand. She didn't shout, she didn't argue, but the room heard her. Just then, Tara pulled out her tablet and triggered a security protocol from the crew interface, a forced re-verification scan. The system blinked red. She failed the ID check, Tara announced, holding the tablet up like a badge of honor. Margaret looked pleased. Kenneth Drayton, the regional manager, had just arrived from another terminal and joined them behind the desk. "That's her?" he asked, glancing at Evelyn without acknowledging her humanity. "She's a liability." He leaned in and whispered to Margaret. "We've had complaints before. Older black passengers don't fit our brand. Handle it." His voice was low, but not low enough. Jasper Reed, still working the baggage zone, had wandered closer with a mop and a Bluetooth earpiece. He heard every word. He didn't react, just tapped his earpiece twice, marking the audio and quietly syncing it with Nina's private cloud. Back inside the gate, Preston began a poll on Instagram Live. Should we let her on or keep it elite? He tilted his phone toward Evelyn. "Passenger vote. Let's keep our standards." The poll screen showed her face with two options: she boards or ban her. Within seconds, thousands voted. 78% chose ban. Tara, emboldened, walked up and held out a crumpled ticket. "Here's your economy seat," she said, sneering. "Back by the lavatories. That's more your style." Evelyn took the paper and looked at it as if it were a wet tissue someone had handed her. She looked Tara in the eye and replied, "You've documented your own downfall." And she folded the ticket neatly and placed it in her purse without another word. As Evelyn watched the crowd morph into a jeering mob, her memory drew back to her earliest corporate years. Once, after presenting a multi-million-dollar restructuring plan to a boardroom of aviation executives, a VP patted her shoulder and said, "Smart work. Who did the analysis for you?" They assumed she couldn't have done it, that she must have borrowed someone else's brilliance. She didn't fight them then, not publicly. She built her own table instead. Skyward Consulting became the force that taught airports to track fair access policies. Now she watched the same brand of dismissal play out again, but this time, she wasn't 34 and climbing. She was 68 standing still and unafraid to strike. While Preston's poll ticked upward, Jasper sent his audio file to Nina. "We've got Kenneth on record," he messaged. Nina wasted no time. She clipped it, added subtitles, and posted it to her Reels account. "Airline manager, older black passengers don't fit our brand." It exploded in seconds. Marcus Tate, who'd been quietly verifying Evelyn's credentials live, now brought up her Skyward profile. "This is Evelyn Carter," he said into the camera. "Retired CEO, FAA consultant, leader. You're watching a woman who shaped the very system Horizon is now abusing." His comments overflowed with fury. "Shut them down. This is ageism and racism. Time for boycotts." Lydia, without missing a beat, stepped to the front of the gate and shouted, "Everybody who cares about fairness, gather here," and they did. 15 passengers, then 20 more. They held signs, jackets, phones with hashtag Horizon Injustice streaming across screens. One passenger pulled out a Bluetooth speaker, playing Marcus's live stream aloud. "She's not just a passenger," Marcus said. "She's the story. And Horizon Airlines just wrote its own ending." In response, Tara's earlier TikTok, where she accused Evelyn of stealing her seat, reached 1 million views, but the comment section had turned no longer praise. Now it brimmed with fire. "Delete this. You liar. This woman paid. You just lied on camera. That's Evelyn Carter. You fools." Evelyn's assistant, Amelia Gordon, watched the chaos unfold from a nearby terminal. She posted Evelyn's verified booking confirmation, time-stamped, route confirmed, and full fare paid onto Instagram Reels with the caption, "Receipts don't lie." But Tara does. It was viewed 7 million times in under 5 minutes. Threads lit up. Reddit forums linked to Nina's audio leak. And suddenly, Evelyn wasn't alone. She was the face of a movement. Margaret Voss stepped forward again, this time shakier. "Ma'am, we'll need you to wait elsewhere. "Your presence is causing delays," she said with brittle professionalism. But it was too late. The crowd had flipped. Lydia shouted again. "This isn't about a seat anymore. It's about who they think belongs up front and who they think should stay in the back." Chants started. "Let her board equal skies." Now Kenneth motioned to a security team to shut down the gate. "Confiscate the phones," he barked. "Shut down Wi-Fi." But Nina had already switched the footage to satellite relay and backup servers. Evelyn stood in the center of the noise, not commanding it but centered in it, like an anchor. She wasn't surprised. They'd attacked her appearance, her credentials, her dignity. But they hadn't questioned her strength. That, she never gave them permission to doubt. Amelia texted her a single word, "Connected." Evelyn smiled. The cameras were rolling. The people were chanting. The truth was out. And the next move was hers. A thud echoed across Gate 12 as two security officers closed in from either side. Preston Caldwell's voice boomed through his TikTok live feed. "They're finally removing the problem." Evelyn Carter didn't move. Her feet were planted like roots beneath her. But the moment had come. Kenneth Drayton, the regional manager, pointed from behind the counter like a prosecutor in court. "She's a thief," he declared. "Not ma'am, not passenger, just she, just thief." His voice cut through the buzz of phones and protest chants, loud enough to reach the CNN crew that had arrived moments earlier. Cameras rolling. They caught everything. The flash of security vests, the glint of Evelyn's blazer, the chaos swelling like a wave. Preston grinned like he'd won. He stood next to a trash can and, with a performance flourish, tossed his half-finished coffee in Evelyn's direction. The paper cup missed, but the liquid hit. Coffee splashed onto Evelyn's sleeve and neck, seeping into her blouse. A gasp moved through the gate. He said nothing, just smiled. "First class isn't yours," he muttered. Tara, a few steps behind, leaned against the counter and tapped her tablet. "Her booking's gone from the app," she said to Margaret, who nodded with shallow satisfaction. "She's been removed." The lie was seamless. Evelyn was being erased, not just from her seat, but from the system. The security officers flanked her. One touched her arm. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us," he said, his voice low, less aggressive than the rest. Perhaps he knew. Perhaps he'd seen. Evelyn looked at him and nodded. But as she stepped forward, Margaret took one last swing at her dignity. "You're nothing here," she said. Not loud, not public, just quietly cruel, like a private wound. Evelyn met her eyes and replied, "I was something long before you ever had that badge." Preston's phone streamed her march past the boarding gate. "Say goodbye to the spotlight, sweetheart," he said, flipping the camera to selfie view. Horizon's elite only. Tara texted on the crew channel passenger Carter flagged, "Do not board," banned from future flights. The message popped up across staff devices like a silent death sentence. As Evelyn was led away, a woman near the exit clapped once, slow, sarcastic. "Good riddance," someone muttered. Evelyn walked without protest, but her eyes scanned the crowd. Many looked away. A few watched. Lydia, still filming, mouthed, "We're with you." Evelyn nodded. Just once. She remembered a boardroom, 22 years ago, where a man had slammed his folder shut mid-presentation and said, "Your numbers make sense, but your tone is threatening." All she'd done was ask for funding transparency. He'd called her unprofessional, and yet, she'd risen. She built Skyward Consulting with the steel forged from those slights. And now, here she was again, thrown out, not because of her behavior, not because of any mistake, but because a system had been designed to make women like her invisible. But Evelyn hadn't come unprepared. As she passed the airport's information desk, She turned to her assistant, Amelia, who had quietly followed at a distance. From inside her blazer, Evelyn handed her a USB drive the size of a house key. "Get this to Marcus," she whispered. Amelia clutched it like a flare. Evelyn continued toward the exit, escorted but not broken. Tara noticed the exchange and lunged forward. "What was that?" she barked. She reached for the drive, but Amelia had already turned. "You'll want to stop," Evelyn said quietly, stepping between them. Tara, eyes wide, snatched the drive anyway and snapped it in two. "Too late," she sneered. "Your last card just folded." What she didn't see, what no one saw, was that Jasper Reed had already mirrored the drive's contents to his secure cloud hours earlier. He'd installed a protocol to back up Evelyn's files through a hidden folder on the gate's public Wi-Fi. That USB, it was bait. The real upload began the moment it broke. And Marcus Tate had the link, in a rented workspace just beyond TSA security. Marcus opened the file and froze. Lines of code scrolled past his screen. The algorithm wasn't just flawed, it was engineered to prioritize younger, white, affluent-sounding names during seat conflicts. Evelyn Carter's name had triggered a downgrade flag based on a bias parameter labeled VIP Trust Score. The file showed Kenneth Drayton's authorization signature approving the system override 3 months ago. Marcus hit live. "Everyone," Marcus said to his camera, "this is bigger than just Evelyn. This is Horizon Airlines admitting, through code, that it sorts passengers based on appearance, age, and race. Look at this." He turned the screen toward his viewers and scrolled slowly, then paused. "Right here," he said. "It clearly states if the age is over 65 and the name is Evelyn, then downgrade." The comments exploded. "This is illegal. Tag the Department of Transportation, expose them." Lydia switched her stream to Marcus's. Nina Patel, monitoring the airport's local Wi-Fi feeds, rerouted the broadcast directly to the terminal's display boards. Within seconds, every screen in Gate 12 flashed the words hashtag Horizon Exposed Passenger Profile Filters Active, live feed streaming. Passengers froze, phones flew up. Margaret gasped. Tara stumbled back. Kenneth, watching from the service hallway, paled. "What did she do?" he whispered. Outside, Evelyn stood calmly by the airport exit, the sunlight catching the damp stain on her sleeve. Her phone buzzed. A message from Amelia uploaded. 40 memi views in 8 minutes. Then another Nina mirrored it. Terminal screens lit up. CNN has it live. Evelyn texted one sentence in reply, dots moving. Inside, chaos erupted. Customers demanded refunds. Platinum members posted angry videos. Staff hid behind counters. Marcus's video had been shared on Facebook, Reddit, Threads, and LinkedIn. LinkedIn, Evelyn's domain. A quiet storm was gathering on the professional networks, where executives and lawyers were now waking up. Evelyn turned to Amelia and said, "Ground them now." Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. At Horizon Airlines East Coast Regional Headquarters, just 5 miles from JFK, the mood was no longer corporate. It was apocalyptic. Laura Hensley, CEO of Horizon, burst into the crisis command room, her phone vibrating with texts she couldn't read fast enough. Screens on the wall flashed red alerts. Trending hashtag Horizon Exposed. Market drop, 22% in 10 minutes. Flight cancellations spike across East Coast. But what chilled her wasn't the PR chaos. It was the footage on the center screen, Evelyn Carter, being escorted by security, calm as stone, while a stream of algorithm code scrolled beside her image. "What the hell is this?" Laura barked, eyes narrowing on Kenneth Drayton, who stood stiffly near the table, fingers twitching beside a half-drunk coffee. "Did you know about this filter code?" Kenneth swallowed. "It's just data optimization. Priority profiles for elite flyers. Standard stuff." Laura spun toward him. "A VIP trust score that deprioritizes older black women is standard. She grabbed the remote and paused on a frame that showed Evelyn's name being auto-flagged for reassignment. "You signed this," Kenneth tried to speak, but Tara Newman pulled in from JFK, beat him to it. His team wrote the rule set. Preston tested it months ago. What Preston yelped, "Don't drag me into..." "You filmed the woman," Tara snapped. "You started the whole thing. You posted the TikTok that called her a thief," he shot back. "And now I'm getting death threats." Laura turned away, disgusted. "You all buried this airline," while the executives scrambled. Evelyn Carter sat at a quiet corner table in the airport cafe, sipping warm lemon water from a paper cup, watching everything unfold on her screen. Amelia leaned beside her, laptop open. "They're debating whether to sue," she whispered. Evelyn smiled gently. "Let them. They'll lose." On LinkedIn, Evelyn had just posted a simple message above a screenshot of the algorithm parameters for every elder you erased, for every name you profiled. "You built this. I'm just the consequence." It had over 500,000 shares in under 15 minutes. In the comments, tech executives, airline watchdogs, and former FAA officials weighed in. Evelyn didn't reply to any of them. She didn't need to. That post wasn't a conversation. It was a warning. Back at headquarters, a war room session was underway. Kenneth slammed a binder down. "She hacked us. That data isn't public. We need to file an injunction." "She didn't hack anything," Nina Patel said coolly, now looped in via secure video from her post at the airport's Digital Operations Center. "Your own gate Wi-Fi synced it. Jasper mirrored the internal comms. You exposed yourselves." Laura stared blankly. "Who the hell is Jasper, a baggage handler with a conscience?" Nina replied. "And a better security protocol than your IT team. This is a smear campaign," Kenneth snapped. "She's trying to destroy Horizon." "She's trying to hold it accountable," Nina countered. "There's a difference." Tara slouched in her chair, the fight draining from her face. "This is going too far," she mumbled. "We could lose our licenses." "You should," Nina said. "She's not just any passenger." The room fell quiet. For the first time, someone said it out loud. Evelyn Carter was not a random traveler. She was Skyward's founder. She was a consultant to 3 FAA chairpersons. She had mentored half of the current policy team in Washington. She wasn't just fighting back, she was lighting a controlled burn under the entire aviation industry. Then came the twist, calm, clinical, and irreversible. Amelia's phone lit up. She passed it to Evelyn. The text was from Marcus Doty, grounding order issued, signed by Chair Sandra Klein. 12 regional flights halted, more to follow. Evelyn turned to Amelia and said, "Make it public." With a single click, Amelia uploaded the document to Threads, then LinkedIn, then Instagram Reels. Nina mirrored it to the terminal monitors. And within 60 seconds, every screen at JFK lit up with the words, "Department of Transportation. Emergency hold order, Horizon Airlines, effective immediately. Flight suspended pending investigation." Passengers screamed. Agents panicked. The boarding signs blinked black. Security staff ran to contain the swarm of furious flyers demanding refunds. At Gate 12, Lydia Harper zoomed in on the announcement and said into her phone, "They grounded them." Evelyn Carter grounded the airline. At Horizon HQ, Laura Hensley froze. She looked at Kenneth, at Tara, at the crashing stock tracker behind them. Then she turned to the legal team. "Get me Washington. Now." But Washington was already watching. CNN was broadcasting the DOT order live, alongside footage of Evelyn's walk through the terminal. Commentators were calling it the most powerful consumer revolt in aviation history, and Evelyn Carter had become its face. Laura slumped into her chair. "Who is this woman?" she whispered. Amelia, standing beside Evelyn in the terminal cafe, refreshed her feed as the video hit 100 million views. She looked to her mentor and said, "You ready?" Evelyn nodded. "It's time." And with that, she rose, quietly, deliberately, and made her way toward the place where her voice would do the most damage, Horizon's executive boardroom. The executive boardroom of Horizon Airlines sat high above Manhattan, its glass walls once symbols of transparency, now reflecting panic. Executives whispered frantically behind scattered folders and blinking phones, their voices hushed but brittle. The door opened without ceremony. Evelyn Carter walked in, not escorted, not introduced. Just Evelyn, with Amelia at her side, a single folder in hand and decades of composure in every step. Laura Hensley rose instinctively, not from respect, but from recognition too late. "Ms. Carter," she began. Evelyn didn't flinch. She didn't return the greeting. She laid the folder flat on the table and said calmly, "Fire Kenneth Drayton, Tara Newman, Margaret Voss. Ban Preston Caldwell from all Horizon properties, or I don't lift the grounding order." Silence fell like a gavel. Kenneth's jaw locked. "You can't issue ultimatums here," he said, forcing a laugh. "You're not on the board." Evelyn turned to him slowly, then gestured to the large screen behind him, still paused on Marcus's live stream. "I am the reason your planes are on the ground," she said, "and the reason you still have an FAA certificate. For now." Laura swallowed hard. "You came here to negotiate." Evelyn didn't answer. Instead, Amelia clicked the remote and played a short video. Kenneth's voice filled the room. Played back in clear audio, "Older black passengers don't fit our brand." Followed by Tara's post, "She probably stole the seat." Then Preston's stream, "Let's vote her out." Then the code, line after line of racial and age-based algorithm filters, with Kenneth's internal approval signature marked digitally. No one spoke. They just watched. One board member stood and stepped out, visibly sick. Another stared at his hands. Laura took a long breath. "Kenneth," she said, "you're done. Security will escort you downstairs." Kenneth stood, shocked. "You're serious? You built this filter," she said. "You buried this company." Security entered. Kenneth looked at Evelyn with a look that was part fury, part disbelief. "You think this is over?" he growled. "No," Evelyn replied. "This is the middle." Tara stood next. "Please, I was following protocol." Margaret gave the order. "I didn't." "You lied. Publicly." Evelyn interrupted. "You posted slander, triggered security, and erased data in front of federal cameras. You endangered lives." Laura nodded. "Tara, you're dismissed." "I'll apologize," she cried. "It's too late." Evelyn replied. "It's documented." Margaret wasn't in the room, but her name was already flagged in the legal stack in front of Laura. Amelia handed over a letter from DOT naming her in the investigation. "Effective immediately. She's banned from airline operations," Evelyn said. Voice crisp. Preston's name sat at the bottom of the page. Laura didn't need prompting. "Caldwell is banned. He doesn't fly Horizon again. And flagged to TSA for harassment," Amelia added. "We've sent the footage." Evelyn looked around the table. "Anyone else want to defend what happened at Gate 12? No one spoke. Laura looked down. "May I ask now? Who you really are?" Evelyn took a breath, finally letting her voice stretch. "I'm Evelyn Carter, founder of Skyward Consulting, former advisor to the FAA. My firm wrote the 2010 passenger equity protocols adopted in post-9/11 reform. I mentored Sandra Klein, who now chairs the DOT." She leaned slightly forward. "The algorithms you corrupted were based on tools I helped design to prevent discrimination, not automate it." The room froze. Evelyn's past fell over them like thunder. Every senior member there had likely read her white papers. Some had quoted her work. None had realized they were trying to bury the very woman who had once shaped the rules they now violated. Then came the twist that no one saw coming. Evelyn stepped back from the table and took out her phone. "I've just been invited to host a Reddit AMA," she said. "Sandra will join. We're announcing a nationwide equity audit for all major U.S. airlines, effective today." The boardroom erupted. "That's not fair," someone shouted. "It'll cripple the industry." "The industry needs to change," Evelyn answered. "You ran it like a club. Now it'll run like a public service. On screen." The AMA began to populate with comments. The first question was already viral. Will airlines be forced to adopt Evelyn's new equity platform? Then came the response from Sandra Klein herself, posted live from her official DOT account. "If they want their licenses, yes." Evelyn turned to Laura. "You'll sign the reforms, or you'll shut down." Laura hesitated. Her hands trembled as she reached for the folder Amelia slid across the table. It was titled Skyfair Compliance Framework. Inside were protocols, penalties, and audit timelines. Laura signed, quietly, firmly, defeated. Evelyn didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply nodded once, then turned to leave. But just before stepping out, she said to the room, "You thought a woman who looked like me couldn't fly first class. What you didn't see was that I could land an entire airline." She stepped into the hallway. Amelia beside her, and the boardroom behind her, forever changed. The change didn't come with confetti. It came with codes, policies, and signatures. 3 days after Evelyn Carter walked out of Horizon Airlines' boardroom, the terminals looked the same: glass walls, check-in counters, security lines. But behind the screens, everything was shifting. Evelyn launched her reform initiative with quiet precision. It was called Skyfair, a framework that required airlines to adopt transparent booking algorithms, real-time passenger equity audits, and mandatory staff training on age, race, and class bias. Horizon was the first to sign, not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. DOT investigators stood in their conference rooms. Federal oversight shadowed every update. Tara, Kenneth, and Margaret were gone. Preston's accounts had been banned from the airline's app ecosystem entirely. But what truly marked the beginning of change was what Evelyn did next, not to punish, but to rebuild. She appointed Nina Patel, the airport's former social media manager, as Horizon's new head of public trust and equity. Nina didn't come from an executive background, but she came with a record. She had been the one to route the truth directly to the public. She was the reason the video reached millions. "Transparency is the new luxury," Evelyn said during her first team address. "From now on, fairness isn't optional, it's standard." Inside training rooms, things looked different. Baggage handler Jasper Reed now led bias awareness sessions for new recruits. Lydia Harper created digital storytelling modules that trained staff on how small slights turn into public disasters. Marcus Tate became Horizon's legal equity advisor, drafting the new contracts under Evelyn's supervision. And Evelyn, she never took a formal title. She declined the CEO offer. "My job isn't to lead Horizon," she told Amelia. "My job is to make sure no one forgets how quickly power becomes a weapon when no one's watching." Her leadership remained quiet, but deeply embedded in every decision. The results came quickly. Within 2 weeks, public trust in Horizon began to rise. Refund requests dropped. Media headlines shifted from racist airline grounded by retired CEO to Horizon embraces Skyfair standards. But Evelyn knew that fixing one airline wasn't enough. She wanted the whole sky to change. So, 3 weeks after the grounding, she stood before a small group of industry executives and FAA representatives and unveiled her next move: Air Equal. The initiative was radical. Every U.S. airline would be required to publicly disclose how their seating upgrades, boarding orders, and algorithmic filters functioned. Any pattern of race or age-based discrimination would be audited. Any airline that failed to meet minimum transparency metrics would face DOT fines, license holds, or revocation. Evelyn presented it with the same clarity she'd brought to boardrooms decades ago. But this time, the room didn't question her authority. They took notes. If you want federal routes, federal gates, or federal protection, she told them, you meet federal fairness. Social media exploded. Air Equal trended on Facebook and Threads for over 72 hours, shared by senior citizens, advocacy groups, and business travelers alike. A viral graphic compared Evelyn's Skyfair principles to the outdated policies of rival carriers. Comments poured in from thousands of passengers who had once been bumped, profiled, or humiliated. One wrote, I remember being told my military ID looked fake. I was 68 and black. I cried in the bathroom. Thank you, Ms. Carter. Another. She's not just reforming airlines. She's restoring dignity. Evelyn didn't reply. She just posted a single line. Every traveler deserves to board with dignity intact. Within a month, 2 major competitors announced early adoption of Air Equal standards, beating Horizon to the punch. Evelyn didn't flinch. Good, she said to Amelia. Let them run faster. That means the sky is getting cleaner. Airlines once dominant for exclusivity were now racing for inclusivity. The industry wasn't just evolving, it was being rebuilt in real time, under pressure, with Evelyn's blueprint at its core. She didn't need to wear the crown. She had already written the Constitution. Justice didn't come with a gavel. It came slowly, like a shadow stretching across everything the guilty had touched. Kenneth Drayton never held another leadership position. His name, once stamped across strategy decks and keynote panels, became a red flag on HR memos across the airline industry. A quick search on LinkedIn returned articles, not job offers. His voice, once bold in boardrooms, now silenced in the echo chamber of disgrace. Tara Newman vanished from the public eye entirely. Her apology video buried under a mountain of outraged comments. Her certification lapsed. No airline would sponsor renewal. Her face became a cautionary tale in diversity training slideshows. Preston Caldwell lost his corporate sponsorship deals. The same TikTok that once boasted of keeping Horizon classy was now a meme of arrogance, shared with hashtags like #PrivilegeCrash and #BannedFromBoarding. Even Margaret Voss, who had simply returned to her suburban neighborhood hoping to disappear, found her name etched into the collective memory of travelers nationwide. That's the one, someone muttered in a grocery line. She packed shelves at a local department store now, far from the gate desk she once ruled. No lawsuit could restore the reputations they threw away in 30 minutes of unchecked power. And no one, not a single passenger, ever called for their return. But Evelyn Carter didn't revel in their collapse. She never posted about it, never gloated. She turned toward building something new. From the ashes of humiliation came a concept she called Open Sky, a non-profit redemption program for former employees who had caused harm through bias but were willing to be retrained. Surprisingly, Tara applied, and Evelyn let her in, not out of mercy, but out of principle. People grow when the system gives them room, she said. Tara worked under Lydia and Marcus, the very people she once dismissed. Her first assignment, writing a training module titled What Bias Looks Like in Real Time. It wasn't a second chance. It was a reckoning in progress. Jasper Reed, who once quietly turned on his body cam, now ran internal accountability units for 3 major U.S. airports. Nina Patel, with her steady hands and faster mind, became one of the youngest VPs in Horizon's restructured leadership. Her division was called Passenger Truth. And Marcus, once live streaming from Gate 12 with nothing but a phone and a conscience, now consulted on federal transportation equity audits, his voice respected at every table. Amelia Gordon stayed at Evelyn's side, coordinating partnerships, media, and legacy-building efforts. But she was more than an assistant now. She was the steward of a vision. Horizon Airlines didn't just survive, it transformed. With Skyfair and Air Equal at the core of its operations, it became a model for equity-first aviation. Flight attendants were trained on not just protocol, but human dignity. Customer service systems were redesigned to identify, not ignore, patterns of exclusion. Elderly passengers boarded first, not last. Names were no longer judged. They were honored. The airline was no longer chasing prestige. It was setting the pace for progress. But Evelyn didn't stop there. She knew systems could always regress without pressure, so she returned to Washington, not as a bureaucrat, but as a storyteller. She appeared on national platforms, not to talk about revenge, but about design. Build systems that see everyone. She said in a PBS special, not just the loudest, not just the richest, and certainly not just the ones who look the part. Her words traveled faster than any plane she'd ever boarded, and they landed deeper. Then came the final twist. While Horizon continued its rise, one of its fiercest rivals, North Flight Airlines, quietly adopted Air Equal first. They didn't wait for pressure. They launched early and marketed hard. Threads lit up North Flight as already Air Equal certified. Their bookings soared by 32% in 1 month. Horizon had sparked the revolution, but others were now racing to lead it. And Evelyn smiled. Because this was never about credit. It was about change. Now she stood quietly near Gate 12 once more, this time as a guest speaker for a new higher orientation. The space was quieter, softer. Someone had hung a framed photo on the wall, Evelyn, standing tall, with the words beneath dignity boards first. She read it, nodded, then turned to the trainees and said, "Never forget what almost happened here, and never let it happen again." So to you, wherever you're watching from, Seattle, Miami, Des Moines, or somewhere small and unseen, remember Evelyn's story. Remember that dignity is not granted, it is claimed. Remember that silence helps no one, but truth builds bridges. If you've ever been overlooked, ever been doubted, ever been told you don't belong, this story is for you. Share your story. Share this one. Because justice isn't just a headline, it's a movement. And tomorrow's flight, it's boarding. Make sure your seat is claimed.